Venezuelans took to the streets in different cities across the South American country and abroad to demand the release of people following the controversial July 28 presidential elections. Called by opposition leader María Corina Machado, the demonstrations are also calling for a halt to what some are calling government repression. These demonstrations are a new effort by the opposition to add support from the international community in its demand for the recognition of the results of the presidential elections which, they claim, were won by the opposition candidate Edmundo González, currently in asylum in Spain. The Venezuelan Electoral Authority decreed the victory of President Nicolás Maduro, but did not show any official record despite requests from the opposition and the international community to make the results transparent. Maduro and González have said they will take office on January 10. On Sunday, more than 100 people lit candles and released white balloons shouting, "Freedom!" for the detainees during a gathering at Plaza La Castellana, in Caracas. Some people had their hands painted red as a sign of rejection to the government repression, while dozens wore white t-shirts and carried signs with phrases such as, "Christmas without political prisoners." Many of the attendees were relatives of the detainees. While the Venezuelan government announced the release of more than 100 people detained after the post-election protests in mid-November, the Foro Penal and NGO says that some 1,943 people are still in jail for those events. "We are not terrorists as they want to make us look," said Sairam Rivas, one of the people who was released and a member of the Committee of Relatives and Friends for the Freedom of Political Prisoners. The government has called its militants to ratify the triumph of President Maduro for a new 6-year term, in what it called the Great Cultural Takeover of Caracas. Maduro on Sunday lashed out against opposition-led demonstrations. He also sent a message to opposition leader Machado, "If you can't help Venezuela, at least don't do harm it." The opposition has asked that court to investigate crimes against humanity that it accuses the Venezuelan government of committing. Early in several cities in Venezuela and abroad, small groups protested with their hands painted red and writings such as, "In spite of the persecution, we continue standing." In cities in Spain, Japan, United Kingdom, Argentina and Colombia, among others, citizens showed their red palms with messages of "Justice Now," "CPI SOS Venezuela," and "Enough of Abuses." The demonstrations took place after the Venezuelan National Assembly, controlled by the ruling party, approved a law that seeks to punish those who support foreign sanctions against Venezuela. According to analysts, it targets opposition leaders such as Machado, who is already facing 2 criminal investigations, one of them for alleged treason against the homeland.
Si tú no puedes ayudar a Venezuela, por lo menos no le hagas daño a Venezuela. No te sumes a las campañas de descrédito y de ataque y agresión contra nuestro país, porque nuestro pueblo es un pueblo noble.
Se está realizando como parte de las vigilias que se han realizado durante todo este tiempo a las afueras de los centros de detención, en los cuales los familiares se han organizado, en los cuales los familiares han llevado esta voz de libertad y sobre todo demostrando que no somos ningunos terroristas como nos quieren hacer ver, y ha sido simplemente velas, rezos, canciones, poesías, los que nos ha apostado a las afueras de los centros de detención, y la exigencia de libertad. Y exigimos justicia para quienes están en este momento injustamente privados de libertad, y además para todos los que han sido asesinados injustamente.
Posteriormente conocimos Que la compañera fuere y bendito sea el fruto de tu vientre, Jesús. Dios te salve María, llena eres de gracia, el Señor está contigo. Bendita tú eres.
People's Deputy Secretary of the Verkhovna Rada Committee on National Security of Ukraine, Roman Kostenko, assessed the capabilities of the Ukrainian Defense Forces to go on the offensive. As the MP noted, the Ukrainian armed forces can always go on the offensive. You can also go on the offensive with small forces, for example, by gathering one company from each direction. An offensive is the concentration of a certain number of forces and resources in one direction. You see that the enemy is weak. You create an advantage in forces and resources there and simply break through. In his opinion, the main question is expediency. It should not be an offensive for the sake of an offensive. Recently, military man and blogger Kirill Sazonov stated that the commander-in-chief of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, Alexander Syrsky, announced a new counter-offensive by the Ukrainian Armed Forces. The position of Alexander Syrsky: we must stop the enemy. But victory is impossible if the Ukrainian armed forces work only on the defensive. We must seize the initiative and counterattack. We must and will. Where and who, you will see. According to Ukrainian Armed Forces serviceman Yevgeny Ievlev, in order for the Ukrainian Defense Forces to launch a counter-offensive, it is necessary to mobilize up to 2 million people. In order for the Ukrainian Defense Forces to launch a counter-offensive, it is necessary to mobilize up to 2 million people, Yevgeny Ievlev said, commenting on information from blogger and serviceman Kirill Sazonov, who reported that Commander-in-Chief Alexander Syrsky hinted at the possibility of a counter-offensive during a meeting in a narrow circle. Ievlev said that as a military man, he could not know such a quantity of data and factors that are known to the Commander-in-Chief. At the same time, he noted that according to military data, in order to counterattack, 3 times more people are needed than the enemy. Today, in total, 600 to 700,000 Russians are concentrated against us. That is, we need at least 1.8 million people mobilized to attack. This is only to liberate the territories. This number of people needs to be put down, and after them, someone else must come, put up a flag and control and hold this territory, Ievlev emphasized. At the same time, he noted that the Ukrainian military command may have plans to liberate territories in small local places. But we must take into account that the units that are currently on the front lines, particularly in Donbass, are very exhausted and have a certain crisis with their infantry, the military man emphasized. He notes that our weapons cause significant losses to the enemy, but the line that the enemy is pushing forward is held by the infantry. Therefore, if there is such a crisis within the infantry from the point of view of defense, then is the story of the offensive even appropriate? That it is necessary is obvious, Ievlev emphasized. Military and political observer of the information resistance group Alexander Kovalenko believes that there is no prospect of the Ukrainian armed forces withdrawing from defensive combat operations in the near future. He noted that at least until Donald Trump's inauguration, the Ukrainian Defense Forces will be in a state of defense.